Good afternoon. We're convening the joint House and Senate Committees on Energy and Environmental Protection, Consumer Protection and Commerce, Energy and the Environment, and Commerce and Consumer Protection on our 1 p.m. informational briefing agenda for the purpose of hearing from NextEra and Hawaiian Electric on their plans moving forward. I'd like to begin just by thanking you, first of all, for showing up and coming to share with us today. We really appreciate that. Obviously, the proposed takeover before us would undoubtedly be one of the biggest changes in a century here in Hawaii. And while the PUC will surely do their part, we also have an obligation to our ratepayers and the communities we represent to decide whether this is in the public interest and what actions the legislature ought to take, if any, to protect Hawaii in the years to come. So I ask you to forgive our skepticism with perhaps some of the questions that may arise. There's been a big announcement, but not much detail yet, so we really appreciate you sharing with us today some of the plans and answering a few questions. So with that, we'll introduce the rest of our House members. Chris Lee, I chair the Energy and Environmental Protection Committee, and I come back to the Senate.
Mike Gabbard, chair of the Energy Environment.
Senator Ross Baker, chair of the Commerce and Consumer Protection Committee.
Sam Sloan, Vice Chair of Economic Development Technology.
Michelle Kidani, member of CPN.
Calvin Say, member of EEP.
Representative McKelvey, Chair of Consumer Protection and Commerce.
Justin Woodson, Vice Chair, CPC.
Cynthia Thielen, member of Energy Environmental Protection and representing the windward side of Oahu.
Representative Pauha, member of the Energy Committee.
Scott Nishimoto, member of the Energy Committee.
Joy Sangwana Ventura, representative of Puna, member of CPC.
Ron Katola, member of CPC.
Representative Cullen. All right, thank you very much. So begin the presentation before us today. Obviously, NextEra Energy and Hawaiian Electric Company. And with that, please take it away.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Other chairs and vice chairs, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to kind of present some information on the proposed transaction between Hawaiian Electric Industries and NextEra, which will involve all three operating companies, Hawaiian Electric Company, Maui Electric Company, and Hawaiian Electric Light Company on the Big Island. It will also involve the spinoff of American Savings Bank, which will create a standalone commercial bank in Hawaii, probably second only to Bank of Hawaii as a publicly traded bank based in Hawaii. I'm Alan Oshima, President and CEO of Hawaiian Electric Company, and joining me in today's presentation is Eric Gleason, who's the president of NextEra Energy Hawaii. We really appreciate this opportunity to brief you and to answer any questions you may have. We know it's a big transaction, and we are both aligned in trying to preserve our commitment to Hawaii and the affordable energy future for all of our customers. In general, this merger benefits Hawaii, our community, customers, and employees. NextEra is supportive of our plans to lower customer bills, triple the amount of distributed solar, and achieving the nation's highest level of renewable energy by 2030. We'll work together to accelerate Hawaii's clean energy future. Joining with NextEra Energy brings together two industry leaders in clean, renewable energy that are committed to strengthening and accelerating Hawaii's clean energy future. We're committed to delivering value and savings to our customers. This partnership will help Hawaiian Electric deliver substantial value to our customers by delivering savings, effectively managing costs, and improving service reliability. The slide you see on the screen outlines some of the goals that we filed with our power supply improvement plans back in August of 2014. The goals are to achieve by 2030 65% renewable energy throughout our service territories on all 5 islands that we serve. We would also lower bills in that same time period by 20%. and we would triple distributed solar at the same time. To do this, we've embarked on a very aggressive internal transformation plan that once we filed the plans, we realized that we had to feel the urgency to not stop the momentum, to continue to move, to transform our company, to be able to deliver on these aggressive goals. We've formed a transformation team, bringing together many parts of our organization outside of their normal jobs to concentrate on several key initiatives. One, distributed PV. We want to continue to support sustainable growth of rooftop photovoltaics. Two, achieving a cleaner fuel for our remaining thermal generating units. We would want to replace our expensive oil with cleaner, cheaper LNG. And I know that we're all feeling the benefits of the momentary, cheaper fuel oil that we're able to buy. As you know, we can't depend on that, so we're continuing our quest for a long-term sustainable, cleaner fuel. We want to transform our generation portfolio to include even more low-cost renewables. To do this will require an aggressive plan to modernize our grid. Modernizing our grid with new infrastructure and technology. Many of you are aware of our initial phase of our smart grid program, where we have studied, implemented in a very aggressive manner, smart grid for 5,500 homes on Oahu. We're learning from that, and we'll move forward with that in all of our service territories in the coming years. We have to become a more customer-centric organization. We want to start implementing things like community solar, non-export and smart export photovoltaic systems, electric vehicle incentives, and more. And finally, to do this, we can't do it alone. We realize that we have to be meeting with all of our stakeholders, including our regulators, in a new form of moving this company forward to meet our state's clean energy goals. I'd like to kind of talk about NextEra Energy's strengths and how they help us to move forward. As you can see on that slide, which I know is not as clear as I'd like it to be, but I'll go through the NextEra Energy's strengths as I see it. They are the leader in clean energy generation. They operate in 26 states. I'll let Eric give you all of the details of their operations. But they both operate a very large and low-cost public utility in Florida, the lowest cost utility in Florida, serving over 4.6 million customers. But they are also a leader in clean energy in 26 other states and other jurisdictions. They have a proven track record of reducing oil dependence, improving fuel efficiency, and lowering emissions. They've moved, because Florida has policies that move them to lowest cost generation. They've converted their fleets to natural gas fleets, as well as nuclear, and they have the lowest cost generation in all of Florida. They have incredible operational performance, meeting their budgets, delivering on time, delivering new technology. They have smart grid throughout their system, almost entirely throughout their system now. Their bills in Florida, of the over 50 utilities and municipalities serving Florida customers, they have the lowest bills. And they have a strong balance sheet and experience executing large capital projects, things that we will be looking at as we move forward on grid modernization. Their expertise and power to attract capital at a low cost will help all customers. I will also say that they have the purchasing power. Economies of scale brings a lot of benefits. Without any other changes, when you are a company of this size, their purchasing power is exemplary. Their cost of capital is much lower than ours. And they have technology that we envy and would love to see incorporated into our systems. All of these things could bring efficiencies in the very near term. You can see how that matches up with what are the initiatives we're trying to accomplish. It's a nice partnership, two good companies coming together, one very large. Although we are considered large in Hawaii, by national standards. We are small. And it gives us the ability then to use the efficiencies and scale that can help us move things faster. I will say that before our board struggled with whether to do this is a very old company. We all hold it very dear. We treasure Hawaii and our customers and our employees. It's not an easy decision, I think, for our board to decide to do something like this. So there was a series of meetings, and you read it all in the S4 that we filed. One of the last things that the board was very concerned about was having some of us go back to see NextEra's operations in Florida to see for ourselves whether we thought that their respect for their communities, their employees, and their customers matched what we wanted to do here. And we came back feeling very confident that we saw what we thought we could merge very successfully. It won't happen overnight. These deals never do. There will be work on all of our parts to make sure it happens if we get the approvals, but we're committed to do that, and we're already doing that. We are introducing NextEra to as many stakeholders as we can throughout all islands so that they will have the opportunity to ask NextEra the hard questions on a one-to-one basis. We've been doing that ever since the announcement, and we will continue to do that to make sure everyone has a chance to get to know this company. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to Eric Gleason, who can tell you a little bit more about NextEra's views and how they see this transaction.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, and committee members for inviting us here today. We're excited about the opportunity to answer your questions. Let me just start with some questions I think you might have. Who are we? Why are we here? What's in this for Hawaii? So first, a little bit about NextEra Energy. We're a clean energy company. Our vision is to be the leading clean energy company in the nation. We have two principal businesses today. If this transaction goes through, there'll be three principal businesses, Hawaiian Electric being one of them, but as we sit here today, there are two, Florida Power and Light and NextEra Energy Resources. Florida Power and Light is a large utility, the largest in the state of Florida, one of the largest in the country. But I know here in Hawaii, large does not always impress. But there's a couple of things I think you might find interesting about FPL. One is that we used to burn more oil than Hawaiian Electric by quite a significant margin. If you go back about 15 years ago, we burned 3 or 4 times as much oil as Hawaiian Electric. Since 2001, we've reduced that 99%. We've saved our customers $7.5 billion in fuel costs over that period. Another point that's related to that and interesting is that we're a low-cost provider. So there are 55 utilities in the state of Florida, munis, co-ops, investor-owned utilities. 2014, for the 5th year in a row, we had the lowest rates in the state. So when we think about the energy business, what we get excited about and what we focus on every day is how do we get cleaner energy and more affordable energy for customers. All of that wouldn't happen without a great team. We have nearly 14,000 employees now in 27 states, 4 Canadian provinces. One of those employees, our first employee in Hawaii, is Kay Fukunaga. Is Kay here? I hope she's here. So Kay's a Maui girl. She joined us about 2 years ago. And for those of you who know her, she's a great example of the caliber of people that we have in our company. We take a lot of pride in doing things the right way, doing business the right way, and a lot of pride in our reputation as a strong corporate citizen. So a little bit about why we're here. Why Hawaii? Why Hawaiian Electric? Well, it starts with we're a clean energy company. And when we look at Hawaii, there is no place on the planet that gets us more excited about the potential for clean energy. It's not a huge market, but in terms of the opportunity for customers here, it's very exciting. And there's 2 reasons for that. You know what they are. One is your dependence on oil, sitting here in the middle of the Pacific, and the high rates that go with that. And the other is the incredible renewable energy resources you have here in this state. In terms of diversity, how prolific they are, these are world-class renewable resources. And so what we get excited about when we step back and look strategically at Hawaii is the opportunity to replace oil with clean energy. The other side of that, and the second point, is for a utility, when you think about the grid and integrating what typically is intermittent renewable energy, that's a technical challenge. And as you know, you're bumping up against that challenge here in Hawaii. That's a challenge, but recognizing the opportunity, it's exciting to get in front of that challenge. And our view on the renewable energy business and technology is that it's the future. I mean, it's here to a large extent in Hawaii today, but the costs are coming down for these different technologies, and we think the end game winner for the power sector is renewables. So we get excited about how in front Hawaii is of the rest of the industry. It's actually interesting to come here. I'm not sure everybody realizes, I know you all do, but not necessarily everyone who's listening, how far out in front Hawaii is versus the mainland in terms of how much renewable is on the grid today. And but to continue to increase that is a challenge that we get excited about. And the third thing really goes back to Alan's complicated arrows chart, okay, which is our ability to make a difference. So when we got together and we looked at how do our strengths stack up with Hawaiian Electric's needs, we see a really good fit. And so when you kind of put all that together, we're very excited about the opportunity to work with Hawaiian Electric to continue that clean energy transformation. So lastly, what's in it for Hawaii? So this is my Allen slide. It's got lots of words on it. The tension is that it actually has too few words. It's got too many words in one sense, but another has too few. These are not all the commitments that we've made. We've already made through our merger agreement some commitments. We're going to be filing an application with the Public Utilities Commission tomorrow that will lay out these commitments and more. So out of respect to that process, we're not planning to go through all those commitments today. So take this as a partial list, hitting some of the high points based on what we've said so far. But when we think about what's in this for Hawaii, we kind of put it in 4 buckets. Okay, what's in it for customers? What's in it for communities? What's in it for employees? And then above and beyond that, what's in it for the state? Alan's talked about or some of the complementarities between our company and Hawaiian Electric, so I won't dwell on that. But I would like to address one thing that people ask about in terms of, what are our plans? And I would just point out that Hawaiian Electric has filed very detailed long-term plans with the PUC, which we're supportive of. They're a starting point. There's a PUC review process underway. Stakeholders are providing input to that. We respect and support that process, and we look forward to whatever might come out of that. Whatever the final approved plans are, first of all, in the energy industry, things change, right? So presumably that won't be the same plan for the next 20 years, but it'll be a good starting point. But the important point I'd like to make is it's not just about the plans, it's about how you execute the plans. And that's where I think our capabilities really come in terms of being able to help Hawaiian Electric achieve what it's trying to achieve better, faster, and cheaper. Second, in terms of communities, we understand the importance of working with communities, supporting communities, really everywhere we do business, but especially here in Hawaii. So a few commitments we've made on that. Hawaiian Electric is going to remain an important company. It's going to have its name. It would be the 3rd principal business within NextEra Energy, right alongside Florida Power and Light and NextEra Energy Resources. It'll be locally managed. It'll have a local headquarters, continue to be headquartered in Honolulu. We recognize, coming from the mainland in particular, the importance of getting good advice and counsel on the right way to do business here in Hawaii. So we've proposed to establish an advisory board. And we also recognize the importance of being a strong corporate giver, which HEI is, and really the expectations here of corporations in terms of community giving are higher than they are on the mainland, and we appreciate that, and we've committed we're going to continue that level of giving. In terms of employees, as I've talked about, we would not be where we are as a company if we did not make it our business to recruit, to develop, to retain, to respect what we think is the best employee base in the industry. We look forward to welcoming the employees of Hawaiian Electric into the NextEra family. We realize any sort of combination like this creates some anxieties. about what does the future hold. To set people's minds at ease, we've made some commitments already. We've said for at least 2 years after closing, there won't be any change in terms of involuntary layoffs or in terms of total compensation or benefits. Of course, we'll honor all existing union agreements. And really, looking at the positive, we see this, and we hope employees will see it as an opportunity for those who choose to do other things within a larger company, and to be part of the industry leader. So hopefully, and certainly we are excited to welcome them, and we hope folks will be excited about the opportunities within NextEra. Lastly, in terms of above and beyond all that, kind of what's in it for the state, I don't want to brag. We're a pretty good company. If you look at what people who know the industry say about us, I think by and large they say we're a pretty good company. We're proud of our company. I think the way we think about this is energy is important in Hawaii, and Hawaiian Electric is important within energy, and we don't just view this as a transfer of ownership. We view this as an opportunity for NextEra working together with Hawaiian Electric to partner with the state of Hawaii to achieve its clean energy goals. So that's the spirit in which we're approaching this. The last point here is probably the most important, and I know I saw Mina Marita in here earlier.
In the back.
There she is. So it's to a point Mina made recently, which is the importance of doing business the right way in Hawaii. We understand, we're not from here, that there is a certain way, that Hawaii is a very special place, that we need to be respectful, we need to listen, we need to learn, and we need to work very hard every day to do business the right way here. And my commitment to you is that we will do our very best at that. So with that, I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we had a couple members from both the House and Senate just walk in. So for the House side, could you guys just quickly introduce yourselves? Who hadn't? I think Representative Bellotti.
Representative Shimoda sitting in the back next to the column.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Della Bellotti representing Waikiki Tamas. Nicole Lowen, Vice Chair of Energy and District 6.
For the Senate?
Gil Kaele from Hilo, District 1. Brickwood Galateria, Kakako, Alamona, Waikiki, Makali, Mo'ili.
Hi, Susie Chan Oakland. I represent from Kapalama all the way to Keawe Street in Kakako, all the way up to Pali Lookout.
Thank you, guys. I really just wanted to begin real quick with a question of what happens after the 2-year moratorium in terms of staffing and everything else. I think that's obviously in a lot of people's minds here. What level of reductions are you looking at thereafter, or are there levels of reduction?
So, Chair Lee, thank you for your question. There are no plans for any levels of reductions after 2 years. We're simply assuring employees that there will be no reductions for 2 years.
Let me also say, however, when we are undergoing a transformation in Hawaiian Electric Company with or without NextEra. And in our company meetings, we've been very clear that 3 years from now, even we cannot promise what our company is going to look like. We do have to become cleaner, better, more efficient, responding to the world more urgently with technology. So we don't have a view of that either in terms of employee count. I just want to be very clear about that as well.
Just go back. For both of you, either one of you can answer this. What are the clear benefits that Hawaiian Electric customers will realize if this pending transaction takes place, and how can you guarantee that those benefits will be realized?
Maybe I can.
Go ahead.
As you might know, I struggle with things like this, and looking at it from a community perspective, employee and customer perspective. And I really struggled with it even in my own mind, trying to find where the value would be. And where I came out, and I think where our board came out, was that there's some clear immediate benefits. I kind of listed a few of them early. NextEra has a credit rating that is three notches above Hawaiian Electric's. Hawaiian Electric is a standard utility credit rating. Theirs is much better. That alone brings a huge benefit in terms of customer benefits. By financing costs will be reduced as we invest in more modern grids, more modern technology. That's great. That's without doing anything else. We've already gotten, I think, some indications from the credit agencies that this will happen if the deal is approved. Buying power. Again, NextEra has incredible buying power due to their size. So they are the largest customer of many of the suppliers to the industry, some of the same suppliers we use. Right now, we don't leverage that kind of buying power. We could immediately get access to that. Those are immediate customer benefits. 3, technology. When we went back to see their operations, we were very impressed with some of the very high technology they use just on an operating basis that we could incorporate into our systems as we modernize our grid. For example, they have things like a advanced failure detection system that monitors all of their wind turbines throughout all 26 states, taking the temperature, foreseeing any problems, vibrations, whatever, all from a center in Florida. They monitor their substations the same way in real time. We have to send truck rolls out to monitor oil levels and other things. They can see in advance, predict failures without a truck roll, i.e., which is expensive when you send people out there, et cetera. And they can prevent failures ahead of time through this technology. That's just one instance. Technology will play a much bigger part in the utility industry all over, not just in Hawaii. And these are things that I think they are on the cutting edge that we could immediately incorporate that will lower our expenses to provide service. Because they have smart grid throughout their territory, when we visited the base yard, Eric's going to get tired of me hearing this, but
here we go again.
Yeah, things I bring back. All of their line crews go out with iPads. So if there's an outage in a circuit in a neighborhood, their iPads will show the entire neighborhood. They can detect where the failure occurred. They can fix it. Then after they've fixed it, they can go back to their iPad and see, are there any customers that still have spot outages, i.e. did not come up despite the circuits coming up, and maybe they have individual problems in their own internal systems. Without that, the trucks would go back to the base yard. The customers might still be calling in saying, we still don't have service. The trucks would have to roll out again. The line crews are empowered now to see, that house still doesn't have service. Let's go knock on the door. Let's see what's going on. These are things that will become more readily available as we improve our grids, improve our technology, advance our smart grid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're getting there. They will help us get there faster. My favorite story is the technology they use because of their size. We're in the base yard looking at a bucket truck. Now, you all know what a bucket truck is with the arm, and the base yard supervisor was telling me how proud they were of their new bucket truck. Because of the infrastructure, wooden bridges across some of their streams, they have to lighten the load and balance the load so that they could do this without impairing the safety of their line crews and the infrastructure. They're able to do it by going all aluminum, and in the process, improve the technology and work, but they also reduce the cost of the bucket truck by $50,000 each. And his quote to me was, buy 5, get 1 free. I would love to get the free one over here. So, I mean, you see the benefits of the economies of scale and technology and buying power. Those are immediate. There are other things that I'm sure as we move along, we could leverage off of their knowledge. I think they could leverage off of some of the things we've learned in integrating more intermittent renewables. So I think there's a good synergy here.
Follow-up, how long is it going to take to get us there? How long would you just describe? How long is it going to take to get us there to that point?
Chair Gabbard, I think some of those things happen right after close, start happening in the first year after close, and some of those things start small and get bigger over time. An example of something that starts small and gets bigger over time is the savings on borrowing costs, because the more capital you spend, the more you need to borrow over time, the more interest savings you have.
Yeah.
Questions from the House? Oh, sure. Rep. Thielen?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Eric, do you mind pulling your microphone closer to you there? Thank you. I have a hearing challenge, but I am concerned about this acquisition. I know that, I'm sorry, Eric, you've talked about NextEra, which really is in Florida, is based in nuclear, liquefied natural gas, neither of which we have here. I have a specific question. When I look at your company down there, you have the natural gas, you have the pipeline generation, transmission, distribution lines, and you kind of own the whole show. There are only 3,000 rooftop solar systems in Florida, and it's illegal. This is what's so strange to me. It's illegal in Florida to go off the grid. I can't get my head around that one. So you're not exactly energy green. So what we have been accomplishing here with Hawaiian Electric's sometimes reluctant participation and sometimes opposition, we've been accomplishing independent green operations in our state, meaning our residents, I think we have the most solar systems in the nation on the roof. Many are going ahead with photovoltaic. As the batteries come online, that's going to become much more the holy grail for the photovoltaic systems. And we're a very independent-minded state with homeowners wanting to control their own energy production, microgrids forming like on the Big Island, Paniolo Power. How on earth does a company such as yours fit into this, and how are you going to be able to change your corporate strategy to adopt what we have in place and are moving forward with?
Representative Thielen.
And if you talk into the mic,
Is that better?
Yeah,
Is that better?
okay.
Okay. Representative.
I think you're in debate class in high school.
Okay. I didn't take that class. I apologize. And hopefully this isn't a debate. It's a discussion. Well, first of all, I have to say some of your facts on Florida are not correct.
Okay.
But I think, and I'm happy to get into that, but I think the important point you're making is that Hawaii does not aspire to be Florida. And we respect that. Hawaii does not aspire. Hawaii does not see itself as wanting to be like Florida. Hawaii is Hawaii. Hawaii has its own objectives. Hawaii wants its own solutions for its own needs, and we respect that. We would not be doing business successfully in 27 states if we tried to take a one-size-fits-all approach to the power business. The thing that we bring, if you go back to Alan's arrow slides, is we bring a lot of capabilities in terms of cleaner energy and more affordable energy. And if that's consistent with your aspirations here in Hawaii, then we think our company has a lot to offer.
My question, though, was how are you changing or willing to change your corporate plan for Hawaii to encourage the expansion of photovoltaic for residents and encourage the microgrids for the Paniolo Power type of operation? Because your company seems diametrically opposite to that.
And so I thank you, Representative. I understand it seems to you that way. It's not diametrically opposed. We have solutions that are appropriate to Florida, and we have solutions that are appropriate to Hawaii. Hawaiian Electric's plans and goals include 65% renewables by 2030, a tripling of distributed solar, and reductions in customer bills. And we've said we support those goals.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. One of the things that I've heard people be concerned about, and so I'm going to ask it directly, we will be, although you talk about a partnership, I see it as an acquisition. And so in the spirit of any kind of partnership, you have noted that there will be an advisory committee. I don't think that Hawaii wants to be the tail trying to wag the dog, so we're looking for some assurances that the things that are important to Hawaii, the goals that Mr. Oshima has talked about, and some other things that the legislature and the PUC may come up with, are going to be honored. So can you give us a sense of what kind of decisions will be made in Hawaii by Hawaii people, what the role of the advisory committee would be, and how it would be expected to interact with the larger company?
Chair Baker, thank you for your question. So here's what we know, and I can share with you. The intention and the commitment is that the President and CEO of Hawaiian Electric would report to our Chairman and CEO of NextEra Energy, Inc. So consistent with Hawaiian Electric being a third principal business, it will be equal in status with the other two principal businesses. That the management team, the headquarters, will be local. So all of the management will be here, with that one corporate officer who has the ultimate say, the chairman and CEO. And of course, things that are appropriate to go to a board go to the board of NextEra Energy, as opposed to the way it works today, which is HEI. I'm sorry, what was the rest of your question? Oh, around the advisory board. So we have said we recognize the need to have an advisory board. We need good advice and counsel. That hasn't been established yet. It's probably too early to say exactly how it's going to work, but we think it's important.
So you would anticipate either memorializing the commitments in something that would come from the PUC. There would be a contract. The Hawaii operation would have a budget. How just operationally, how would some of that work?
Operationally, how would the governance work?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's very early. I mean, we announced this transaction less than 2 months ago. We haven't started integration planning yet. There's a lot of details that still need to be worked out. At this point, I can tell you what the intention is, and the intention is to do something that's consistent with the reporting relationship I described and the advisory board that I described.
Okay, I understand that the devil is in the details, but quite frankly, before the PUC signs off, the legislature signs off, the public feels comfortable, we're going to need to see a lot more of those details discussed with input, and in some way some guarantees that they go on in at least some measure of perpetuity, so that we feel like that this is a good deal for the state of Hawaii. So I just put that out as something that you need to be thinking about, because I would imagine that a number of the other questions that you will get from this panel and others will be along that vein. Thank you, Chair.
Questions from the House? Representative Woodson.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for being here. I guess some of my questions were actually answered, but I do have one outstanding inquiry, and that is, I realize that you may not be willing to offer us a 5-year or a 10-year comprehensive business plan so we can see it. But my question is, are you willing and able to at least minimally give us like a 5-year pro forma so we have some idea of your vision for Hawaii and as it relates to our energy future?
Vice Chair Woodson, everything we have will come out through the PUC process. So, for example, as part of our diligence on an acquisition, there's a financial model that will be reviewed as part of the PUC process. It'll be confidential, I think. But In terms of the underlying business plan, the long-term plan, the detailed plan, that's really the plans that Hawaiian Electric filed in August.
I may be able to add some clarity to that, as well as to Senator Baker's question. Hawaiian Electric Company will still be a Hawaii corporation under the laws of Hawaii, will be regulated by the Hawaii PUC. None of the regulatory structure will change. It's just the owner will change. So all of the regulation of the company will remain in Hawaii. The plans that we filed are still pending before the Public Utilities Commission, as you know. And those plans were the first attempt to really set something out to the public, to the commission, all stakeholders, say this is our view of what a reasonable renewable plan looks like out to 2030. As those plans are reviewed and refreshed, the company is still responsible to the jurisdiction of Hawaii. So the owners will have to follow whatever the commission decides for Hawaiian Electric.
I guess what I'm asking is just to look at the raw data, the numbers, because the numbers will communicate the story. So what I'm asking is, are you willing and able to release that information to these two joint committees within the House and Senate chambers?
Well, I was trying, our plans are on file. They have the numbers, they have the background on when things get invested in, how that affects the rates, how that affects the bills. Those are still before the commission, and they will be going through the commission with input from the public. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that despite the ownership, our company will have to still abide by what the PUC tells us to do, pursuant to the plans we filed. What NextEra brings to us is, notwithstanding whatever the commission decides to do, we get access to a lot more technology and capital to be able to move it faster.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. But hold on just one second. We're going to jump back and forth between the Senate and House. So up next, Senator Sloan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome.
Thank you.
A couple of quick questions. First of all, how did this meeting of minds come about? Who was courting who?
We courted them.
And how long ago was that?
So the, if you will, first date was set up in May and took place in June.
Okay.
It wasn't a blind date.
It wasn't a blind
No.
date. Okay.
That's not an electric.
Mr. Oshima alluded, when you were describing NextEra, you alluded to Florida policies. Now, NextEra is a very profitable, successful company. What are those Florida policies, and how do they differ from Hawaii policies?
This is what I've heard, and Eric, you can jump in, but Florida is the least cost generation state, so until it has to pass that test. So if you're installing generation for all of your customers, it has to be the least cost. So natural gas and nuclear happen to pass the test. More recently, technology has reduced the cost of solar, so their next generating unit will be a grid solar farm. So that's the policy. It's not like go to renewables, it's least cost. There are other things that impact, I think, as we get further into this. As you know, Florida is hit by a lot of hurricanes. Fortunately, you know, we're not, although we feel like we are, nowhere near what the Gulf Coast and Atlantic Coast face. So the building codes are different. So wind loading on roofs may be different. And they're a low-cost energy. The economics of different technologies may or may not pencil out as they do here. So those are some of the things that, in terms of policy, affect what kinds of things get installed in different states.
And after all is said and done, if for some reason this merger in fact does not take place, is Hawaiian Electric prepared to be more customer-centric to effectuate these goals, and would it still be at the 2030 period, or would it be longer?
Well, we're hoping by 2030 we meet all of these goals, and we want to do it faster, better, quicker. Yes, we can do it. I think that we'd love to do it even faster and more cheaply, and that would be the NextEra partnership.
Okay. Finally, the preferred plan by Hawaiian Electric. You talked about plans and all that. Are you going to adopt that plan? Are you going to substitute a plan, or do you know at this time? And one of the provisions that's come up, or one of the discussions we've had over the years, in the Hawaiian Electric preferred plan, there's nothing about undersea cables. But understand that NextEra has been involved in cables before. Would that be one of your objectives?
So, Senator, our objective is to do the right thing for customers. Let me take the 2 points you made. In terms of the plans, it's not a case of, at least the way we think about it, it's not a case of there's a set of plans and then maybe someday there's a NextEra plan that's just substituted for it. The way we think about it is there's a set of plans, quite detailed long-term plans that have been filed with the PUC that are in the process of being reviewed by the PUC in a very structured way with, intervener participation. And that's a great process. So we look forward to what comes out of that. I'd be surprised if the plans that ultimately come out of that are exactly the same as the plans that went into it. So that process is happening. We support that process. And at the end of it, that'll be the plan at that point in time, and we're going to be doing everything we can together with Hawaiian Electric to execute it to the best of our ability. In terms of the cable, in our minds at least, the jury's out as to whether a cable between Oahu and Maui Island is in the public interest. We've said, based on the analysis we've done, suggests that it is. They've done some analysis that suggests that it isn't. We don't have the benefit of all that analysis. It's not our top priority, quite frankly. We've got a lot of things to focus on in this merger. But I think in due course, the Commission has a proceeding underway. They may make a determination that it is or isn't in the public interest. At some point, if we have the opportunity, we'll further that analysis and see where we are. But ultimately, what we want to do is what's right for customers.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Representative San Buenaventura.
Yes, thank you. I'm from Puna, and as you know, we've been hit by a lava flow and by a cell. And what concerns me is usually bigger means squelching innovative out-of-the-box thinking that HELCO was really great at with, especially preventing the lava flow from affecting us. Is NextEra going to squelch that kind of innovative, or is it going to promote that? I mean, especially in Puna, where we have a lot of out-of-the-box sustainable energy grids or microgrids of our own. What is NextEra's position regarding that?
Well, Representative, thank you for your question. We don't really have a specific position on any of the individual things you said, other than I will say that we agree with you that squelching innovation is not a good thing. We agree with you that big companies sometimes are guilty of that. We try not to be one of those big companies. Okay, we have been more successful than most in our industry at being entrepreneurial and nimble and working with the trends in the industry. And we understand that in Hawaii there are many potential contributors to this clean energy transformation, and we embrace that. So hopefully that answers your question.
I have a second question, and that is Hawaiian Electric, at great cost to itself, came down to Puna and quickly put us back on the grid. What I'm concerned with is what Senator Chair Baker has pointed out is, will a big company in Florida be as understanding and as quick thinking as and responsive as Hawaiian Electric has been in disaster areas?
We'd better be. But we're all about doing the right thing for customers, and we understand disaster response. We get a lot of hurricanes in Florida, so we appreciate the importance. We understand here you are, you're in the middle of the Pacific. You actually can't call on the resources that some mainland utilities do. It's a big priority for us, just as it is for Hawaiian Electric.
Okay, thank you.
We checked on that as well. They actually have mobile disaster recovery units that we admire. They have a lot more storm-related disasters, so I think they have some technology that we could actually incorporate. But thank you so much for recognizing our hardworking employees on the Big Island. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Further questions? Senator Chanoklin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Alan.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to ask, with NextEra's involvement and knowing how aggressive our state's renewable portfolio goals are for the whole nation, actually, how much sooner than 2030 could we achieve, or could this new company help us achieve that goal?
Yeah, I'm not a betting person, you know that, but I'm pretty confident that with their expertise and financial power and purchasing power, we can get there sooner. I'm not sure how much sooner. Of course, I didn't predict that our bills would be the lowest as they are now since 2011. It's all up to the oil market. We do need to get to a more stable platform for our remaining thermal generating units. It's not a one answer. Integrating more renewables, and as you can tell, even the renewables costs have come down. Our latest application to the PUC with a number of grid solar IPPs, 240 megawatts, is under 15 cents per kilowatt hour, for example. Technology is getting us to the more renewable, clean future. We have to retire some of our older units as they come up, but we also have to ensure our customers really want lower bills. We all do. But our economy demands stable, reliable electricity. When we meet with our military customers, who are among our largest, that has a lot of high technology, our hotels, our businesses, our hospitals, outages are a problem for everyone. We need to prevent outages as much as we can. We have to provide a voltage that does not fluctuate to impair technology. These are things that customers don't necessarily see, but that we are very concerned about. It's not just about an electron. So as we improve our company, as we improve our system, as we improve our relationships, it's not only the bill, which is very important, but it's also all that other stuff that everyone relies upon in today's technology-driven world. And we know we're the foundation of it, and we take that very seriously.
Has this company, though, committed to and is familiar with our renewable energy portfolio? And have they at all indicated how they can help commit? I know you mentioned a few things, that they have technology and a higher credit rating, which is important. So I'm just wondering if there has been that commitment. And then secondly, for those that do want to install PV systems, how much sooner can that occur if NextEra was involved in the picture?
That, I'm not sure about the sooner. We've already filed something at the PUC, as you know, to try to lift some of the circuit level restrictions and change out some of the economics. We had a hearing before some of these same committees. Was it last week or the week before? I think that, first of all, I don't think we would have moved forward with NextEra if they did not adopt our plans. We are so committed and aligned in this state for a renewable future. If any suitor had come to the company saying we don't want to do that, it would have been a non-starter. So that was one of the first tests, right?
Can I just add, Senator, if we thought Hawaii wanted to stay 70% oil, we would never have come. We wouldn't. The first date would never have happened. We're excited about Hawaii because we love clean energy.
I think one thing that is not being heard enough is that they're the nation's, North America's largest renewable energy provider.
I still haven't heard, though, how that will accelerate things. So you cannot give me a more certain commitment at this point.
I'll give you a little glimpse of what my day is like in terms of technology and how many people are asking for appointments in our company, meeting with many, many people, pitching improvements, technology is constant now. We're in a time of exponential change. The change is what's going to drive a lot of what we're going to see in the future. So I can guarantee you that whenever we take steps for improvement, 6 months from the time we do that, it will be questioned because there's going to be something better. That's the world we live in, and it's a great world, but it's a hard decision world. That is what's going to create the environment for us, and I think that's what excites NextEra. We're right in it first before any other jurisdiction of the country.
And to follow up with Senator Baker's question, the commitment normally for many non-Hawaii folks that invest here, usually they fill the top management positions with non-Hawaii residents. So what kind of commitment do you have to making sure that people are not, or we have good representation among the highest ranks in this company, Hawaii?
So, Senator, our one commitment we've made is that there'll be no involuntary redundancies.
I heard that, but I also know enough of companies that they may not reduce the rank and file, but all management is not Hawaii.
You will not see that. You will not see that.
Okay.
Moving on, Representative Cachola, we'll go back and come back.
Yeah.
To Representative.
On page 2 of your slide presentation, under transformation, on the distributed PV, what's the percentage of rooftop PV are you willing to allow? Number 1. Number 2, under cleaner fuel, what's the percentage of LNG are you going to use?
I don't recall the percentage. I can give you the megawatts. I mean, 900 megawatts of distributed rooftop solar. We already have, I think, 340 or so. So it would triple by 2030. The percentages vary by island. Overall, we're at about 12% on all of our jurisdictions. It's the highest on Oahu as a percentage. But that is what we're committed to.
So meaning there's a limit to the number of PV, rooftop PV that you're going to allow?
It's not what we will allow. It's what we think the market will bear. Again, we're technology and economy driven. Many of our residents do not live in single-family residences that they own. The state has now incorporated the GEMS program to allow lower-cost financing to make it available to other kinds of residences. High-rises, condos may not have the availability of rooftop solar. We're moving forward with plans for community solar so that people can buy an interest in a ground-level solar farm, for example, and get the benefits of solar energy without installing it on a rooftop. We're looking at non-export, smart export pilots so that even other types of organizations can do that. Community solar, by the way, may benefit our charitable organizations who frequently are renters but need protection from energy bill fluctuation. When we get community solar in place, which we're working very hard to do, come out with a pilot, those energy credits will follow the organization, not stay with the place. So we're looking at a number of things to try to get more renewable energy as a portfolio of energy sources to our customers. We have to do what's right by our customers. I will also say that we cannot place all of our eggs in one energy resource. Several of our recent problems, when we had some generation problems, would have been alleviated had we had wind. But we don't count that as what we call firm power. So, we have to have a balance of things that the sun only shines during the day. Wind is available from time to time, hopefully more often than not, depending on its siting. We are trying to get battery storage.
Alan, all I wanted is there a limit to the number of rooftop PV that you are going to allow? So anybody can apply?
It's economically and technology driven.
Okay. On LNG, what's the percentage of the use of that fuel that you're going to use?
We're still negotiating that. Right now, we're coming close to a decision. We probably would not even, if we move to LNG, we have to buy it in bulk to get the lowest rate, but it may not go totally all of our units on LNG. We're looking at all different scenarios.
Can we say 50%?
It could be 50, 60. We don't know yet. We're still doing those
If
analyses.
that's the case, 50, 60, is LNG still considered to be fossil fuel?
Yes.
Then we are not going to reduce the dependency on fossil fuel if you use LNG, and that's still 50 to 60% you're going to use.
Let me clarify. We cannot move to a total renewable tomorrow. We will have fossil fuels as long as we don't have cheaper renewables. The conversion won't happen tomorrow. It'll happen years from now. It's a gradual decrease of fossil fuel, and what LNG would do is replace the more expensive and dirtier fossil fuels by cleaner, cheaper fossil fuel, which will enable the investment in the grid to be able to integrate more renewables.
So the renewable portfolio will not be attained if you're going to use 50, 60% of LNG, because that's still burnt fossil fuel.
No, our plans call for it to go down to zero as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Gabbard.
Eric, in your CEO, Jim Robo, he recently was quoted in the Advertiser December 28th saying that he's not, quote, he's not a big fan of incentives that distort the market, when he was referring to our solar tax credit, our existing solar tax credit. In that same article, it pointed out that NextEra Energy received $132 million in federal production tax credits for wind projects as of September 2014. How do you reconcile
Square that.
How do you square that?
Yeah. Chair Gabbard, thank you for your question. Our view on renewable energy is that it's becoming more and more economic over time, that we're increasingly nearing a point where it can compete straight up with fossil fuels. You're seeing that here in Hawaii now. And therefore that incentives over time should be phased out. And we say that about wind production tax credits just like we do solar investment tax credits. And I think, I believe the context of that quote, he was not even specifically referring to Hawaii state credit, but the principle remains the same. Our view is that over time, based on their increasing competitiveness, it should be possible to phase out all those credits. But equally for fossil fuels, any subsidies or incentives that they get over time should be phased out as well. Now it's not for us to set policy, but that is our view.
And do you support HECO's latest announcement to transition away from net energy metering as well?
Yes, we do. We support distributed generation as a sustainable and growing part of the energy mix here in Hawaii, and we think that that's an important next step.
Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, and welcome to Hawaii.
Thank you.
I just want to echo Senator Baker's comments. So timelines are really important to me, and as I'm looking at the PUC docket, I'm realizing the PUC docket is as confusing as the legislative timeline. Alan, when you mentioned the plans being under review now, is that docket instituting a proceeding to review the HECO company's power supply improvement plans?
Yes.
So what I'd like to know is, what is the timeline on the PUC? What is your anticipated timeline that they're going to finish that process? And then looking very early on in the docket process, you say you guys started dating in May. By August, NextEra Energy Hawaii was moving to intervene in that docket. So what was the basis for NextEra's intervention? I think some of the notions of what the plans are, NextEra clearly is already playing in shaping what those plans may be for the future. If I understand this correctly, and I may be wrong, and I may be misunderstanding the PUC process. But that's the first set of questions I'd like to have asked and answered. And then, is there a docket, or will there be a docket issued for the review of the NextEra acquisition of, and when is that going to come out? And do we have a sense of when those timelines are?
I'll answer the stuff that's directed to me. The PSIP review docket is ongoing. It started really quickly. I can't say what the PUC intends to do and what's next. I know that they feel a sense of urgency, but I don't know. We also have DGIP, right, that turned into DER. We also have our demand response dockets. We have a lot of dockets related to clean energy that were all filed around the same time, and the PUC acted immediately to open dockets to start moving them forward. In terms of our joint application, which will be filed tomorrow, I think it'll just follow the normal PUC process of opening it up for statements of position, consumer advocate statement of position, and coming up with a procedural order. Our anticipation, we hope that it would take, by the end of the year, we'd have some resolution, but that's really up to the PUC.
And Representative, part of your question was around the timing and the overlap between the PSIP filing and our intervention and our discussions. At that time, there were very few people from our companies involved in the discussions between our companies. Alan and I were certainly aware. I don't know if anyone involved in the PSIP team below Alan knew anything about the discussions at that time. They were doing their work independently. I will say I authorized filing the motion to intervene in that docket, and also the public comment I think that we submitted was under my signature. And the principle behind that was we didn't know if we were going to get to an announced transaction, which ultimately didn't happen until December. We were then, we still are, two independent companies. It was, they took a position on the cable. We wanted to understand better. And so our comment, if you look in that docket, basically said, look, we're open-minded, but we'd like to get more information on this analysis that they've done.
So your intervention was purely just on the cable, nothing about solar, PV, distribution, any of that?
If you look at our motion to intervene, we left ourselves the latitude to address other things, but the only comment we filed addressed the cable.
Okay. Further questions?
I have one. Go ahead.
Chair Gabbard.
Yeah. As you embark on this whole regulatory process, I'd be interested to hear from either one of you or both of you. Are there any conditions that are deal breakers? That you would like to share? Hey, that's what we got. We got to ask the hard questions.
Well,
we're having a conversation.
Not at this time. I prefer not to.
Yeah, I don't think that's how we've approached it. We've approached it trying to put out the best case for stating the positives. It's really up to the commission and the interveners and the consumer advocate. We don't know. It's too soon to know. As you know, it's a big process, right? There's going to be lots of IRs, and we're preparing for that.
Don't dodge like a politician.
Right.
Really,
yeah. Chairman's asked the tough questions. I can see that. There's really nothing further to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
McKelvey?
Yes, just a couple questions. Thanks, Chair. On your on-island presence, the daily interaction of customers, billing centers, being able to pay your bills locally, troubleshooting hotline, customer service, is all of that going to remain local, or is there going to be a plan to outsource this? In other words, close local billing offices, run things through the internet, have operators and customer support from Florida and the mainland. Are you going to be disclosing what plans are going to be done in that area as far as local presence goes?
You want to talk about where we are in integration planning?
I think Eric and I just talked about some of this even on our way over. It's really too soon for NextEra to know. They really, really want to get to know our company, how we operate, know the values of our state, et cetera, before making firm plans. Believe me, these questions are coming up in our company, and I'm not able to answer it. So I've been finding 5 minutes of time in between meetings with Eric to say, look, we've got to sit down and talk about this. The true answer is that we do have to do that, but they are very intent on really knowing what we're like, what Hawaii's like, how to do business here, and to really serve our customers. And what he's told me, and I believe him, is that they don't believe that what works in Florida will work here. So that's the process.
putting your customer first can be measured either in dollars and cents or in truly customer value with the Hawaii paradigm, which is to have a face, have a person you can talk to be able to have the convenience to walk into a billing center. And that's when I see deals like this worries me, because in the dollar and cents universe, it makes sense to offshore all of this stuff. But we lose people working here, we lose that face-to-face, and that's when the customer frustration grows. So that's why I kind of, from the consumer protection standpoint, that's something I hope that as you move forward, you'll see that dollars and cents doesn't exactly play out equally when you're talking about a place like Hawaii and that kind of relationship. Along those lines, the dockets with the PUC, they're ongoing. I know with brief discussions with the interim chair, their plan is to move your docket along in conjunction with the others to kind of flesh out what your plans will be in these other areas, DG, power production. So are you planning, as things move forward, and if the commission is looking at approaching this in an integrated conversation on commenting on those dockets and putting forward your plans from your NextEra plans through these other dockets, is what your future will be?
So, Chair McKelvey, I think we will reserve the right potentially to comment. I don't see us proposing other plans.
So you're going to stick with what has been presented through the HECO family already?
And I think which will continue to be improved over time in response to stakeholder input, commission feedback.
Okay. And then one final question, I'll just throw it out there to be totally blunt. You said that economy of scale will be able to lower customer bills. You made it sound like the vision of HECO would be eventually the aim is to lower customer bills. If this deal were to go forward, can you unequivocally say that customer bills will be lowered, and if so, sooner and greater than if it weren't to go through?
That is the goal.
That is the goal.
Sooner. I mean, the things that I mentioned are things that just happen without any other changes occurring. Our costs go down.
Okay. Because that's really important. The advantages that are being touted are going to actually result in lower customer bills and greater customer choice as to DG. I, for one, am going to mark these words because that's what the consumer wants to see if this deal goes forward.
So, Chair McKelvey, I think it's important to note that as long as the Hawaiian electric system is dependent on oil, there's a big part of the cost structure that's out of our control. So I think when we talk about customer bills being lower, they have a plan, and the incremental value that NextEra brings is being able to help reduce costs beyond what they otherwise would.
A large part of our bill, over 50%, is our purchase oil that we don't mark up. So there are a lot of ifs, gives and takes.
Well, that's refreshing, especially since I would be very, I guess, disheartening to see it come off of the labor side, which I alluded to earlier. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chair Baker.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of follow-up questions. I think my math is correct. You talked about by 2030 these things were going to happen. This is 2015, so I'm assuming it's going to take us 15 years to get to those goals. Does that mean that customers are going to have to wait 15 years to see reductions in their energy rates?
Yeah, I want to be, there's a lot.
Yes, it's going to take 15 years to get those reductions, or yes, you're going to answer my question?
Yes, to get 20%. I don't know what you are exactly. It's a complicated question, but 20% by 2030, yes.
Okay. The
For
reason
bills,
it
for
is
bills.
important that we understand that this is not going to happen tomorrow is because when we put in the portfolio standards and we started moving to clean energy, the assumption was that going to clean energy was going to mean that our bills were going to go down. That has not happened.
That's right.
And so the effort to go forward with the acquisition or merger will ultimately help Hawaiian Electric get there, but we're not going to see any reduction in our energy bills unless the price of oil continues to go down in any time soon. Is that correct?
No, unless we switch to LNG and can flatten that cost of oil.
Okay, let's talk about LNG for a second. We don't currently have the infrastructure to take LNG. We have to bring it into the state, so it's imported.
Right.
And it's low right now, but it could go up. We don't know I've seen talk about, doing a terminal. How do we get it in? Can we get it on barges? Does it have to come in from some other way? There's a cost to bringing LNG in. So can you say with any assurance to the ratepayers that if we bring in LNG and all of the attendant costs that have to go with it to get it here and get it to a place where you could use it, whether it's on Oahu, Maui, or Big Island, how is that going to lower the costs, and when might that happen? Because there's regulatory hoops to go through.
We wouldn't do it if it didn't lower costs.
But I guess what I'm trying to get everybody to be aware of is even if the acquisition went through tomorrow, everything was signed off, that doesn't necessarily mean that these other things are going to happen in short order, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If you did LNG, what would be going through the regulatory process, all of that, what would be the time frame for that?
We hope 2019, 2018, 2019. There are other things that are affecting it, but I know you don't want to get into the details, so I'll stop there.
Okay, but it would take that long. Is there anything from this merger or acquisition that is going to help us lower the rates next year?
Yeah. Oh, well.
Not next year, in 2016.
That's next year,
Yeah,
2016.
Yeah.
It will
Yes,
help
ma'am.
us lower operating costs. I'm not sure about the rates because we're still tied to oil.
Who uncouples us from being tied to oil?
If we are successful in getting LNG, that decouples us.
Okay. It's very frustrating for policymakers, I think, to hear the nice-sounding plans, but still to know that it's way out in the future, and people are concerned about their rates now. So, I'm hoping that the PUC can streamline their processes. They need to be deliberative. They need to do their due diligence. But we have dockets that just haven't moved. So whether we need to come up with another commission to take care of the other stuff that's on the PUC's plate so it doesn't it doesn't get pushed behind all of this.
Right.
Or you guys need to write everything in a whole lot clearer English so everybody can look at it, get through with it, and make some decisions. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, just to follow up on Senator Baker and also Rep. Cachola on LNG, what share of the total electrical demand in the 3 service areas for LNG? My understanding is you guys do 30-year planning. That's your planning horizon is like 30 years, right? The way utilities do things. Well,
I mean, the plans they filed go through 2030, but
right.
Often the plans go out even further than that
So-
when they do the analysis.
Can you give us an idea in terms of the share for the the total electrical demand?
Would be fueled by LNG.
Yeah, fueled by
What
LNG.
part of it generating capacity would
Right,
be based on
yeah.
LNG?
Until we reach 65% renewables, then the LNG will be 30% of the energy mix in 2050.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a few questions to follow up on some of the discussion. Just going back to, I think one of the very first questions feels like hours ago now.
Glad it's not just us.
You said the jury's out on the cable in your estimation, and I think this is important. We talked about this before because whether or not you connect the inter-island grid and create one grid determines what projects in the neighbor islands will go forward. And you're talking about billions of dollars in investment, give or take, between the cable plus those projects, et cetera. And that determines really how you weigh utility scale and other neighbor island grid projects against things like static generation with LNG and other stuff on Oahu. So I guess my question is, you're investing multiple billions of dollars into this deal. How can you not have this question answered already as to which way you're going to go and which way you're going to invest because your business model depends on it?
Well, Chair Lee, I hope you're not trying to talk us out of this because it's too late. Our view is no matter what direction Hawaii goes, the utility is going to remain important and capital is going to be important. And all of these questions are open, and it is a very complicated optimization, which includes facts that change over time. And so it would be irrational, I think, of us to come in thinking we had the answer. And that's just from a sort of a pure technical and economics perspective. And then, of course, you have the fact that in Hawaii, people are passionate about energy. And we're coming from the mainland, so we also need the benefit of that feedback.
And I guess my question, as a shareholder, if I were a shareholder, I'm not.
It's not too late.
Full disclosure. But how does that jive with what the for-profit side of the business and the certainty that it demands for investors? How does that work?
I think there's no realistic scenario that doesn't involve Hawaiian Electric continuing to need capital, continuing to need all the things that go along with cleaner energy and more affordable bills for customers. And so, we don't have to have the perfect plan for the next 20 years to make an investment decision. In fact, I'll tell you, in my experience, it's actually quite extraordinary to find a utility with a very detailed plan that goes out 15 years.
So I guess just to wrap it up, what you're getting at is basically so the deal is not dependent then on
any specific,
or anything like that.
No, sir.
So stepping even further back than that, I guess. So I guess the question, we all know, obviously, there's a lot of contractual stuff, and that's between you guys. But in the meantime, if the deal doesn't go through for whatever reason, let's say there's a hiccup at the PUC or whatever, I understand there's a penalty that's going to be paid by the utility. So my question is, what is that, and who pays for that?
So you want me to give the non-lawyer version? Sure. The way it works, I think you're talking about the $90 million payment. So nothing will be paid by the utility. This is between HEI and its shareholders and our company. If we don't get regulatory approvals within the time limit, we owe them $90 million. If they decide they want to combine with someone else, then they owe us $90 million.
Yeah. But just to be clear, put on the record so we all know, that's not something that's going to be asked for in recovery.
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for that non-lawyer answer.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I want to turn to something which I think is of my personal interest, and it's stepping back to Florida for a minute. And for all the conditions that could be placed upon this deal, for all the efforts to build a new model here in Hawaii for NextEra, to operate in a different manner, to reflect our values and our laws and our own energy goals, I worry that down the road, some decades from now, long after we're gone, long after the governor's administration, the PUC commissioners are gone, that NextEra will still be there because our business model depends upon it. You've got a long-term investment that you're going to make. But in the meantime, any protections we put in place, whether it's energy goals, benchmarks for cost reduction, what have you, I worry that those would change based on the practices of the company in Florida, which has been to gain tremendous political access and influence and spend incredible amounts of money, millions of dollars in campaign contributions and everything else in order to influence that process to get a desirable outcome for the utility. And I want to read you just for 1 second something from the Miami Herald, which was here just 4 years ago. Utilities were stung when the Public Service Commission rejected rate increases they were counting on. So the companies are now urging the Senate to reject 2 appointees to the Public Service Commission. The 2 voted against the rate requests. The utilities also want legislation allowing them to build solar energy plants and charge customers for the full cost of them without going through the Public Service Commission to prove the new power generation is needed. And there's a whole string of things like this that to the layperson from a distance appears as though political influence has an effect and is a part of the business model that NextEra uses. So my question to you is, do you plan as a company to get involved politically? And if you do, can you the board or anybody at the company offer assurance that either you will not be making political contributions, and this is, again, just to me, I'm speaking, will not be engaging in that sort of activity and will commit to stay out so that there can be ease with the public, that there is no undue influence being asked for over time, and the values that we have and the laws that we put in place today will not be subject to repeal or what have you at the influence or the urging of the company.
Chair Lee, thank you for your question. I don't mean any offense to any reporters in here today, and I'll even say on the mainland, sometimes don't believe everything you read in the papers. So I'm not going to specifically take issue with what you read in the Miami Herald, but I would just tell you that I'm a proud employee of NextEra Energy. We're very proud of Florida Power and Light. We do business in the right way. And in terms of coming to Hawaii, as I've said, we're very intent in doing business the right way here in Hawaii as well.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's up to us at the end of the day to make sure that while we're here, we do our part to hold the utilities accountable to the will of the public and to the public benefit. I worry that over time, while we may be looking at rate reductions in the near term, which HECO's already started on and planned for, in the long term, that we don't end up captive to whatever the technology is, whether it's LNG imports, some sort of energy asset for which we're going to pay artificially high prices in the long term. And we instead move toward a more decentralized level of energy generation that allows flexibility so that we can adapt. And we're going to have the best advantaged resource use that we have available. And this whole question of politics plays right into that. So that's why I wanted to see if we can get you guys on the record saying something to that effect, that you would not be engaging in those sorts of things. And it's a high bar. But
Chair Lee, I'm not sure which sorts of things we might be engaging in. We try very hard and do business the right way. We are very focused on doing what's right for customers. And as we said, distributed generation in Hawaii is a big part of the mix, and we support that.
And so hypothetically, if we were to change the law, for example, state contractors currently are prohibited from making campaign contributions to include public utilities as a regulated state contractor. Could the company support that?
I don't have an opinion on that today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I, following this line of questioning, I mean, I think we may be going far afield from what the informational briefing is, but I think people are concerned about campaign contributions. Would you support a ban and prohibition on anyone who may be involved in the energy industry from contributing any funds to us? So i.e. the PV industry, the solar industry, I mean, maybe we should just ban anyone from giving us monies from your side of the
We
table.
could ban all campaign contributions, period.
I
That
am
we
for
could
that.
support.
Thank you.
Further questions from the Senate? Any further questions from the House? If not, we'll say thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it and look forward to working together. You guys, as you proceed, can you keep us up to date if we have further questions? Can we ask them of you on a timely basis?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Aloha.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.